What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hopefully you all are having a very blessed and wonderful day. Today we have a very dope and important video. Well, I won't say important. It's more so important for me. Actually, no, scratch that. I lied again. It is important. It's important for everybody because Rocksteady has done something that is very rare to see studios do. So earlier today, I was slumped over when this happened. They lifted the NDA for the closed alpha. Now, the reason for why this is shocking is because, again, like I just said, this is not something that you normally see studios do. If anything, we would have been more likely to get a whole nother playtest, and then we would have been able to discuss that over them lifting the NDA agreement for the closed alpha. That was not expected. Now, people have been saying over the past couple of days to, lift the NDA, hashtag lift the NDA. People realistically have been saying that since the closed alpha ended, but after the reviews came out, that's when it really started to become more of a thing. Lift the NDA. You even had former Rocksteady developers saying it, lift the NDA. We've already heard the news outlets speak on it, but now it's time to hear from the people and see how they feel about it, because realistically, other than like more bad press, what's the worst that could happen, right? To quote Paul Tassi, because I'm gonna put a screenshot of his article in here too. To quote him, because he put this in his article, the positive to negative reception today has literally been 10-1, and none of that is a lie. People actually enjoyed this game, but the way some of these reviews have panned out, like IGN for example, that would have you thinking that this game was dead on arrival and that Rocksteady had no idea what the hell they were doing when they was making this game. I can tell you now, that ain't the case. You can go on Twitter, you can go on Facebook, you can go on Reddit, you can even go on the Discord. You will literally see the masses of the community talking about how much they love the alpha. So many people talking about how they were on the fence. They had no plans to buy the game because they weren't expecting anything from it. They didn't think it was going to be good. Now they got the standard or the deluxe edition locked and loaded, ready to go. Right? We've been telling people that Suicide Squad has all of the baseline things needed for a live service game to function long term. And people say that, all of that stuff that Suicide Squad has is an industry standard. But it can't be to a certain extent when you think about how often live service games release and they either don't have all of these things, a majority of it, or even half of it. So clearly they're not the industry standard as much as people would preach, but I digress. Now, this video is more so to me discussing how I felt about the closed alpha overall, and I'm going to break this down into segments. I actually had another video that I had wanted to drop today, but with the news of the NDA being lifted, this definitely took like major precedent, and I was like, yeah, that video can wait. But I definitely do have at least 3 videos dropping over the next 4 days, so make sure to look out for that. Now, the first section we're going to get into is the story. So here's your warning. If you don't want to hear this stuff, go ahead and skip right to the next section of the video. Now, starting off with the story, you are pulled immediately back into the Arkhamverse, and you are starting off in a very familiar setting, which is Arkham Asylum. You get to meet Waller and the squad at the same time, and their dynamics get displayed right away. These are the bad guys, right? They're held as the kings and queens of Arkham in its current state, but they are the bad guys. And Waller is here doing them a favor in order to get what she wants, which is usually how things go whenever Waller comes to see you. Now, what follows is a very funny cutscene of them figuring out exactly why it is they're all there, what they're there for. They start taking shots at one another, and then the whole encounter pretty much just ends up with a musical sequence of them all attacking one another and being the reason the bombs got implanted in everybody's neck. Also, not to mention, as a black man, there are subtle hints and nods to the humor and remarks that come from a black man's tone, and that was very noticeable in Deadshot's character, so that's already another plus to me right there. Now, one thing that Rocksteady definitely got right was the group's dynamic, because in the squad, Harley Quinn, Deadshot, and King Shark usually have a tight relationship, right? In some other iterations it's Killer Croc, but in most iterations now it's King Shark. Boomer usually is always the outlier of the group. Sometimes he's included, sometimes he's not, but the tightest relationship has always been between Deadshot and Harley. And as you go forward over the course of the game, you can begin to see just how much these characters don't care for each other, but they are more than willing to work with each other in order to go home, because at the end of the day, they're not doing this to save the world. They're not doing this to save the day. They're doing this to save their own ass, which is the whole thing when it comes down to the squad, right? I'm doing this because I have no choice. Now, if I had to put all of this stuff into perspective, right, the way that this group's dynamic is looking right now, Boomer's the crazy uncle who always smells like piss and backwoods that nobody really wants around, but he does have his usefulness. Harley is the crazy one of the group. Like, you can trust that she'll get stuff done, and it may not be in the way that you want it to. You can trust that she also won't get anything done, but she will make sure that she has a blast doing whatever it is. Deadshot is the stoic, no nonsense, driven leader type of the group. He's willing to engage in shenanigans with the team, but at the same time, he also has very little patience for bullshit. King Shark is, if I had to compare him to anyone, it would be the same as Drax from the Guardians of the Galaxy. And whereas King is going to be the absolute heart of the team. We were able to see that in the short story, in the shortness of the story missions that we got to play during the alpha, but over the course of the game in post-launch content, I'm pretty sure that role of his is definitely gonna take a much deeper dive. Now, people have had issues with Rocksteady before when it came to the storyboarding. For example, I believe Arkham Knight was the only game where they did most of the writing, if not all of it, by themselves. They didn't have any like outside help, and it was great in some areas, and it was some inconsistency in some areas, and that didn't sit well with a lot of people. But it really seems like Suicide Squad has refined that formula, right? The group dynamic is right, the comedy is there, the tragedy is front and center. I'm more than excited to see what happens next and to see just how well this story and its supporting characters and set pieces are handled. Now, moving over to the gameplay, there's a couple of things I love, there's a lot of things I liked, and there's a few things that I just did not care for. Now, one thing that I loved but also kind of hated was the traversal, and let me explain. So the traversal was absolutely lovely. Now, all of these characters feel unique in their own way. Like, everybody is fast in their own right, and once you really get the rhythm of these characters down, you can just glide across the city. Literally just glide, just astro glide. Now, one of the reasons why I kind of like turn my head whenever I hear people talk about how the traversal is clunky is because they don't actually know what they're doing. And the reason why I say that is because in Suicide Squad, the traversal, funny enough, actually has a skill gap. There will be people who are good at it. There will be people who are bad at it. There will be people who will be able to cross the entire city, and if it's not required to do so, they will never have to touch street level. That's really how traversal is kind of panned out in this game, right? It's fast, it's fluid, it feels fun to do. The only reason why I would say some people say it feels clunky is because they just aren't used to it. Like, all of these characters have a rhythm that you have to get. Once I figured out how to use one character, everyone else just kind of fell in line. But I'm speaking for me specifically because I play a lot of games where there are characters that move around very erratically, fast-paced motions. Like, you got Doom Eternal, Quake, you got numerous anime games like Naruto and Dragon Ball, you got Forspoken, Sunset Overdrive, you can maybe count Infamous in that area as well. I'm just used to that type of movement. So once I had the basics of it, everything pretty much just fell into place. But I will say this, the traversal is not inherently clunky. It's only clunky at the start, and the reason for that is because you don't know what you're doing. You have to find everybody slow, and that's part of the reason why I hated the traversal, because this was something that wasn't explained. So in the game's opening sequence, right, one of the things they go over, so in the game's opening sequence, there's a very thorough training set piece that's not only canon to the story because it takes place 5 days later in the week, because the course of the game takes place over a full week, but they also run you through a lot of the game's mechanics. One of the things they don't go over is the fact that you can reset traversal. What that means is that every character has at least 2 different functions that can fully reset their traversal and keep them on the move. Everybody can wall run, everybody can slide. Deadshot has a kickstart, Harley can grapple cancel, Boomer has maybe his dashes. I forget exactly what Boomer has, but I do know that he has options to reset his traversal as well, and so does King Shark. Everybody has at least 2 mechanics that can fully reset their traversal and keep them on the move. But again, that's something that's just literally not explained, and that's a problem. Hopefully that gets fixed later on, but it is what it is. Also, fun fact, because I mostly hear Harley's the one a lot of people tend to have an issue with, or they felt like she wasn't good enough. This comes from the developers, by the way. They've told us this. Harley at their peak, Harley is the fastest character of the base 4. Traversal wise, Harley is the fastest character of the base 4. Just keep that in mind. So you really, once you find the rhythm, you'll understand what that means. Now, the gunplay honestly is very smooth. In a game like this, the traversal can be good, the story can be good, but if the game, not even just gunplay, but if the gameplay is horrible, then the game just won't survive. The guns felt smooth. It felt like they had impact. The mixing of traversal and combat was very fluid, even more so once you find that groove. There's numerous things all in play, like combo meters, different perks and skills popping off, counterattacks happening everywhere. Then later on in the game, once you start mixing in different stuff, like different skills popping off, afflictions, things of that nature, everything just kind of blends itself into a kind of controlled, uncontrollable chaos, and it's keeping you engaged the entire time. It's easy to get overwhelmed, but that's also why traversal is so important, because these fights, as they've stated, and as we've experienced because we've played the alpha, they are literally meant to drag your ass across the field instead of letting you get comfy in one place to defend yourself. And it's about you adapting to that and literally moving with the flow. Now, I could also say the same thing for the melee weapons, and to add on to that, once you get into playing the game, that's really the only time you will be getting to understand that even though melee isn't the main focus, it's very far from not being important, right? One of the game's biggest mechanics is tied behind melee, which is shield harvesting. Hell, you'll be able to make builds where melee can be the main priority if you wanted to, but you got to understand it won't necessarily be Arkham combat. That still needs to be understood. Now, is it a departure from the previous game's more melee focused combat? Yes, but Suicide Squad has managed to make the melee and the gunplay feel very fun, which is easily the most important thing next to having a great story, because great gameplay will ensure that gamers will continue to come back no matter what. The guns have a very nice variety. The guns and melee weapons have a very nice variety because, as I said in the previous videos, the gear system takes a couple of pages out of the Book of Borderlands, where the guns and melee weapons will vary depending on their manufacturer. And as we've come to learn, the guns do not have levels. It's only a rarity. So you will never have to worry about being locked out from a weapon because of its requirements. Perks can drop on any gun. The guns are fully customizable and upgradable. The gear felt great because you could actually see the changes in the gameplay, and that's also important. Everything I said here is just the gunplay feels great. The melee, is there more to it that we haven't really dug into yet? Absolutely. I still feel like there's another tier to that portion that we haven't really experienced. That's like late game stuff, but they both definitely feel great. Now, the new location and characters are also great, right? Metropolis is a breath of fresh air. The city design is wonderful. It was colorful, bright, futuristic, massive. It's 2 times bigger than Gotham. In the previous games, we had the gritty background of Gotham, and that was because that is what suited Batman. We're playing new characters in a new location, so the tone cannot be the exact same. Funny enough, this was the best way to handle things, because if you have any knowledge about Metropolis, it's often that Metropolis is referred to as Gotham's sister city. Not to make a joke here, but it's literally day and night. Metropolis has become the mecca of superheroes in the Arkhamverse, and as you go around the city, you can see that, with statues of Superman and Wonder Woman everywhere, graffiti, merchandise. There's a whole Justice League district that is set up like the Vegas Strip for tourism. This is a city that they don't love their heroes, they worship them, right? This is a city of tomorrow that is protected by the heroes of today, type B. Now, fan favorites coming back like Penguin and Riddler definitely helps to provide that nostalgic feel of the previous games, because it's like, I know who these characters are. They're familiar. It's great to see them here. I wonder what role they're going to have to play in the story this time around. And then you got newcomers like Lois Lane, Rick Flag, Wonder Woman that help to provide that fresh territory type of feeling. And I'm curious to learn how everyone's relationships will develop with the squad going forward. I had a great time with the playtest. I enjoyed myself thoroughly. I was already locked in to buying this game day one, but the playtest made me do nothing but double down. And I'm very happy that the NDA has been lifted, because now we can talk freely about this stuff for the remainder of the month, and everyone can see what it is that we have been saying for the past month. Rocksteady has been in the kitchen cooking. The smells coming from the kitchen are pulling us in. It's intoxicating. It's intriguing. We're curious what's about to come out of those doors and what's going to be on this plate. Now, all we got to do is sit back, shut the fuck up, and let them finish the plating. And that is when we can judge the full product. I'm not going to lie. I've been watching a lot of Food Network lately. Cooking competitions are that's my jam. But that brings us to the end of the video. Hopefully you all have had a very great and wonderful time here. Let me know down in the comments below, how do you feel about the NDA being lifted, and how did you feel about the output if you had the chance to play it? And as always, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and smack the notifications bell so you won't ever miss out on any of my future Suicide Squad related content. And I will catch y'all in the moonlight. Peace.